Today you'll work on your 1-point perspective room. We already pasted down the photographs to make a surreal and bizarre looking scene. I had you guys draw extra items to incorporate the surrealistic look into your drawing. The drawing can be positioned any way. As long as you keep your perspective correct, it'll feel realistic and believable, even though everything in your picture is not believable. Today we're going to start to shade. We're going to use what's called an ebony pencil. This is like a normal pencil. It can be sharpened and it can be erased. And it's going to get us values just like our photographs. Grayscale, that's called, when you have lights, darks, and gray. Use a regular eraser if you make any mistakes. We're also going to use what's called a blending stump. This is not like a regular pencil. It's just mushed up paper that can get you some soft values such as gray. And then for our black areas, we're going to use a pen. I'm going to start with shading the pear since I have an example of a photograph of a pear so I can match the values. Typically when you shade, most objects have a dark area, a light area, and a gray area. The darker areas tend to be on areas that would be shadow, would be further away from the light source, typically around the edges or any sort of crevices you might find. I'll shade with my ebony much like I would a normal pencil, shading kind of darkly, but I also want to make sure that I'm keeping my lines close together, so I shade in layers. I don't just go over an area one time, I go over it several times. As you can see, I'm going back and forth. I also want to think about the type of object I'm shading. It's a round object, not a flat object. So you'll see that my values, the way I'm shading, is also on the round. I'm going to even add a little bit of a shadow where it's coming out of the picture frame, because most likely there wouldn't be light hitting there, so you'd see a darker area of the pear down at the bottom as well. Next, I'm going to use my blending stump. This is going to get me the lighter gray tones, and it's also going to smooth out my shading, because even though I tried to be really smooth with my shading, it's natural to have some line work, and the blending stump helps prevent that. It's sort of like if you've ever blended with your finger before, it's the same idea. It's just in a pencil form. Again, the blending stump doesn't get sharpened, and actually the better blending stumps are the ones that are a little bit softer and not perfectly sharpened. So as you can see, I'm just kind of pushing the gray tone into the white area to really help make this pear look three-dimensional, giving it nice light, dark, and white values. And I do have to go back and forth over areas a few times. Now I'm going to work on the stem, which is a dark value, so I'm going to shade that in, then I'm going to blend it a little bit. And then finally I'm going to use my pen to show my areas of dark, because the ebony pencil is never going to get black like a black marker is. And as you can see in the photographs, there are lots of black areas. So I typically use this to do some edges, but I don't like to do a full outline. I'll leave little spaces or gaps in between. Otherwise, too much of an outline can tend to look cartoony and not realistic. So I give just a little bit of an edge. And then I'm also going to give some speckles to the pear to show a little bit of texture and a little bit of detail. And that's shading with an ebony and shading with the blender and shading with a pen. And you're going to want to treat all things on your drawing with some kind of grayscale shading. So any object that you drew, any decorative item, even the walls, as much as you might say, oh, these walls are white, we still have value in white walls. So now you can see what I'm doing is shading the edges, the corner of the wall, to give a little value to this, what is a white wall. Using my blending step now to give a little bit of gray tone, and now using my pen to create a little bit of more creasing and a little more darkiness where the shadows of the wall would be. If you want to use color on your drawing, you're welcome to, but what I'm really looking to see is your understanding of grayscale shading. So color is not required, definitely can help your drawing, but please focus mostly on your grayscale shading. There is an example of this at the teacher's desk if you want to see more ways to shade.